guys, I'm Squall, and welcome back to the channel. I know a lot of people out there have been having some troubles with Sony Vegas, or Sony Vegas 12 to be particular, and I've been helping out a few people, and it kind of inspired me to want to do kind of a quick tutorial series. This could be something I do off and on over time as I find little things, or or I may have a couple episodes right off the bat. I'm going to start with this kind of short episode, not real short, but an episode kind of to help you get started with Sony Vegas and what some things you need to look at, and just some things that I found have worked for me. Now, some people this may not work with, some people it may. So first off, right off the bat, if you have problems with Sony Vegas, say lagging, slow, unresponsive, Sony Vegas 12, for some reason, I'm not sure why, has had some issues with that. And one of the things I did to help that was I went to the shortcut. Now, if you're on Windows 8, this may not be on your shortcut, but if you're on Windows 7, it'll probably be there, or it'll be in your C drive, program files. If you have a 64-bit, it'll be just program files, and then Sony, and then it should be right under Sony Vegas Pro 12. You'll find the little Vegas shortcut. And what you want to do is you want to go to Properties, you want to go to Compatibility, and you want to change the compatibility settings. You want it to run in compatibility mode for Windows Vista. The next step is if you can't drag and drop files, you'll want to make sure that you uncheck Run this program as administrator. For some reason, it won't let you drag and drop when you're running it as an administrator. So those are two things to set right off the bat. So once you got that set, that should help you with some lagging of Sony Vegas, unless your computer just can't handle Sony Vegas, and that's why it's lagging. So next, we're going to go ahead and open up Sony Vegas, which I already have it open here, and I'm going to just drag and drop a video. You can go to your file import, or you can go to your project media bin and do it that way. Me personally, I've always enjoyed the drag and drop, so I'm just going to grab a video here that I've already been working on a lot. And actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go grab a game video. So YouTube drive, I got to recording, and I'm just going to grab a 1080p right now. Yeah, I'll grab a 1080p. So grab a 1080p, drag it on top of the icon, and then drag it into your timeline. So don't let go until you've got it in your timeline. And then once you do, you're going to have a little pop-up. Now this pop-up says, do you want to set your project video settings to match this media? Now I'm going to say no, and I'm going to show you why I say no here in a few seconds. So we say no, it brings it in, it's going to build the peaks on your audio, which could take, you can see the progress right here down here in the corner, but it could take a few seconds, a few minutes, depending on your computer. Just depends on the type of computer you got. So the first thing we're going to do right off the bat is we're going to change our project settings. Now, as you can see, I have a named one here, but what we're going to do is we're going to actually go and I'm going to show you what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click on one of these HD. If you're going 720p, you want to go with the 720p. It doesn't really matter, just as long as you find like the HD 720p or the 1080. I usually do, just one of these. Pick one of them because you're going to change the settings anyway. So once you change the settings, I'm going to go ahead and stick with 1080, but if you're 720, it'll look exactly the same other than your width and your height, okay? So you're going to have 1920 by 1080. You're going to have field order is going to be none. Pixel aspect ratio is going to be 1 or square. Your output ratio is 0 degrees, of course. Now your frame rate, now this is pretty important, is to make sure you're at 29,970, or basically 30 frames per second. And the reason that is that's what YouTube's encoding. If you change it any higher, you're probably going to have a lot more upload time. Stereoscopic 3D mode, you're going to have off, and you're going to have your pixel format to 8-bit. You're going to have your full resolution quality to best, your motion blur type to Gaussian, and your deinterlace method to none. And then I check adjust source media to better match my project or render settings, because personally I want it to the video that I'm looking at to render to the quality that I'm setting up. And then now once you've got all these settings done, you're completely done with these settings, you're going to come up here and you're going to click and you're going to name it. So I'm just going to name this tutorial version, okay, just so that you guys can see tut version, okay. And what you're going to do is if you do the same settings every time you go into Sony Vegas, so let's say you're always going to do 1080 or you're always going to do 720, you'll want to check this start all projects with these new settings. I'm not going to do that because I already have some settings in there, but once you've checked that, hit the save button on the template, it's gonna always say it's identical to user defined template or this template or that template, and you're just gonna say, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cancel because I don't need to. Then you're gonna hit apply and okay. So once you've done that, now your video should be set up in the project setting. It should be set up correctly. Now, the next step I always go to is I go to my video. Before you start cutting, before you start editing, if you get your videos in, right click on them, go to properties, go to disable resample. I like to reduce interlace flicker, and 9 chances out of 10 I will uncheck maintain aspect ratio, but you don't have to do that if you're always going to, if your video is 720 and your project settings are 720, you won't need to do that. I just do that for my personal reference because let's say I record Minecraft and my Minecraft screen is screenshot and it just looks a little bit differently. I want it to maintain aspect ratio. So that's why I uncheck maintain aspect ratio. But I'm going to leave it for this time. So then you hit OK. Now, the reason we did that now is let's say I slice this video somewhere, right? I want to use both of these video parts, but let's say I started chopping this up, okay? And I'm using S to slice. So if you notice, I click where I want to slice. I can use the arrow pan on my keyboard, so left or right, to change keyframes. And then once I find where I want to slice it, I hit the S button and it'll slice it. So that's a real quick, easy tool. But once I've done that, the reason why I say that is if I right click now and go to properties, each one of these will be set how I set them. Now, if you notice, I didn't do any color corrections, okay? And I'm not going to go through my color corrections right now, just because that'll work for another video. But let me go somewhere where you can kind of see some different color corrections, somewhere where we can see the sky. That should work, actually. So let's say I'm here, and I go to my color corrections. I hit the little icon there. If you didn't see that, I'll go back. I hit the little icon right here. It's like a bar with 2 arrows pointing inward. You click that button, and what you're probably going to see if you've never set up anything is you're going to be in the effects, and you're going to see all these different effects, okay? I'll show you how to set up a filter package later, but right now I'm just going to go to my normal filter packages, and I've got a ton of them in here, but I'm just going to pick one, add, and hit OK. And then now you see how the color changed. Okay, now the problem is now I have to do that to every one of these video files, okay? If I had done that just like I did the video settings, then when I sliced it, each one of these would have had the color correction settings. So now if you look, each one of these has to be color corrected based on the fact that I sliced it before I color corrected. So make sure anything you're going to do to the overall file, if you're going to be slicing it and chopping it, you do right off the bat. So project render settings, the project settings, or property settings, sorry, on the video, and then your color corrections or any crops even. So if you use the crop tool and you crop this down at all, make sure you do all that beforehand. So, okay, so now that we've got that on the hand, let's get to the most important part, which is rendering this file out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and delete just a couple sections of these because I don't need the whole video file. And we're going to just keep this little short piece right here. Now, one of the things you're going to see, now I'm using my scroll mouse to scroll in and out here. Now, if you look, my bar or my time marker is right here. So when I zoom, no matter where my mouse is, it's going to zoom in and on the center of that marker. So if I need to zoom in on this file, I want to click there and then zoom in, okay? That way I get the file in my menu, or in my screen. So now that we've got the file the way we want it, it's like, what, a 30-second file. We want to render it, okay? Now, let's say you accidentally drug this thing out here, okay, and you didn't realize it. So now you see that nothing's highlighted, but this little bar is a loop region. If I was to render this right now without changing anything, it would render up to that point. So what I want to do is I want to just kind of come up into this area once I'm done, and I want to double click, okay? And I want to double click until it goes and highlights just the video file, okay? So once that it's highlighted the video file, then I can render as. That's just my personal preference, how I like to do it, because then I know I'm rendering the exact amount of time that I need to render. Okay, so then you're going to go to File and Render As. Okay, so in this menu right here, there's going to be a lot of different choices. I have some templates already set up, but I've played with this as much as I can, and this is what's worked for me, okay? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to come to this Sony AVC MVC, okay? Once you're clicked in that menu, you're going to then pick one of these. I happen to choose the memory stick QVGA widescreen 896. Why? I don't know, but that's what I chose, okay? So I'm going to go to Customize Template. So the first thing you're going to want to do is up here under Video Format. Now, don't change the name or anything yet, but Video Format, choose AVC. Okay, once you've chose AVC, now you can choose your output settings. Now, this is going to be either 1920 by 1080 or it's going to be 1280 by 720. So if you're a 720p, you're going to choose your 1280 by 720. If you're in high def 1080, then you're going to want to choose the 1920 by 1080. So once I've chose that, I'm then going to go to the profile high. So you want it to set to high. You want to leave these the same. You want to leave your frame rate at 29,970. Okay. Field order is going to be progressive. Pixel aspect ratio is going to be 1. Make sure you change it to 1. Bit rate. Now this is an important one. Everybody has different opinions on bitrate. YouTube, I think now I may have these numbers wrong, but right now at 1080p is 8,000 bitrate, and then at 720p I want to say it's a 4,000 bitrate, but I'm not positive on those numbers. Don't quote me. Okay. Now a lot of people say render at the bitrate you want. Okay. My problem with that is Sony Vegas's render just doesn't render at the quality I want to see at 8,000 bitrate. Okay. So I bumped that bit rate up. If your computer can handle it, you might as well do it, because whenever I rendered at 10,000, I rendered at 12,000, I rendered at 14,000, okay? I rendered at all these bit rates. And the video file on my computer, of course, looked better based on my bit rate. But what was surprising is even though I rendered at 8,000 bit rate, when I uploaded it, it looked horrible. So then I jumped all the way up to these 12, 14, until I finally got to a bit rate that when I uploaded it, it didn't have so much loss that it looked like shit. Okay, so what I did was I changed my bitrate to the 16,000. So you can choose 15,000. I don't know why I chose 16. I just chose 16,000 at the time. Okay, the next step is, let's say you have a decent graphics card. What you're going to do is you're going to want to click on System. You want to click on Check GPU. If it says something about available, that means you can use your GPU as encoding, and you'll want to click Render using GPU if available. And then audio, you can change audio. You can have it at 128. People like to bump that up sometimes. That just makes your file size bigger. Yeah, your audio quality will be a little better, but it will jump up the size. I find 128 to be just fine. And then you're going to want to come up here, and you're going to want to name it, whatever you want to name it. Of course, I'm going to name it Tut version, or whatever the case you may be. You're going to hit the Save button, and then you're going to hit OK. Once you've done that, it should save right here. So now every time you render, you can click on that. You can also hit the favorite button next to it so that it always pops up in your favorites. I have a 1080p YouTube right here that I use, and it works absolutely great. So like I said, AVC 1920 or 1280, high CABAC 29970, none, 1, 16,000 automatic, or render using GPU if available. Currently, I change that back and forth depending on what I'm doing. So those are my current settings right now. So then what you're going to do is, once you've done that, you'll want to click a location. So I'm going to browse, and I'm just going to go to Black Ops 2, and I'm going to pick clips, because I render clips in here. These are like my test clips. And so then I'm going to say test, and then I'm going to hit save. And then I'm just going to hit render. From there, you're just going to wait for it to render, and you'll have a full settings set up right there, project settings. Once you've saved and made those your templates, you can then go in and just choose those each and every time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. On the next video, I plan to do some other different things, some little things here or there that help me out. And so I hope you guys come check that out. And thanks for stopping by, and I'll talk to you guys later.